The topic I chose was under supply and demand and talks about the demand for crime. Over here we have in perfect competition the graph of crime opportunity and risk for supply and demand for crime opportunity and risk. As you can see, the optimal level of crime is when supply meets demand over here, and as crime opportunity increases, the risk for crime also increases. Crime opportunity is set by your environment. If you grow up in a neighborhood with a lot of gang violence, you are more likely to be, you will have more crime opportunities. Whereas if you live in a neighborhood with more up and coming trends, you have less opportunity for crime, and therefore your risk is minimized. Over here, we have the total social cost and where the optimal level crime falls in for the market as a whole. As the number of offenses increases, the marginal cost and marginal revenue are respectively influenced. F stands for punishments, P stands for probability of conviction. So over here we see the marginal cost of the probability of conviction, the marginal cost of punishments, the marginal revenue of punishments, and the marginal revenue of the probability of conviction to society as a whole. Now, if you are a criminal, you are going to think about the gains versus the pains. The gains of committing the crime versus the pains of committing it. If you are jaywalking and you are late to catching your subway, your gain would be making it to your subway, and your pain would be the penalty for jaywalking on a busy street. Most people choose to make the subway, as this is a very small case of penalty. A penalty of $500 if you get caught is unlikely to happen, so the gain of crossing the street during a busy time just to make your subway is more likely to be there. On the other hand, if you are murdering someone, the pain is you may get caught and spend life in jail. The gain is you would have your revenge served. Now, that is up to the person themselves, which is why it is so hard to model someone's opinion versus through gains and pains. This is the equation of social loss, where F is punishments, P is probability of conviction, C is the cost of combating offense, and O is the number of offenses. BF is the crime times the severity of the conviction. In order to reduce crimes, there have been 5 theologies that have been certified. There is retribution, incapacitation, prevention, rehabilitation, and restoration. Restoration reminds me a lot of therapy. When if you have committed a crime of possession of cocaine, restoration would look like getting psychiatric care for dealing with your addiction. Rehabilitation is also the same idea, where you are in rehab and you are trying to understand, my bad. Rehabilitation would be if you are addicted to cocaine and you are caught with an ounce of cocaine. Instead of putting you in jail and incapacitating you, you are being rehabilitated of your addiction. Restoration is when there has been a change in attitude, when the criminal no longer feels like they need, so the murderer we talked about, if you're a murderer and you have killed someone, you no longer feel that negativity in you, so you're feeling a lot more restored. Prevention is when there's deterrences available. For example, in a lot of areas where panhandling is common, even though it's legal, there's a lot of preventative methods such as spikes under railroads or spikes in common seating areas, so that there's a decrease in the homeless population and a decrease for the demand of money, and there's less crime likely to happen. Incapacitation is the United States' favorite method to dealing with crime, and this just places large groups in prison. Um, I do not believe this is a good method to dealing with crime because you are removing a criminal off the streets if they are still a threat to violence. However, the United States takes this to the next level and just takes anyone off the streets if they have been involved in a criminal activity. Retribution is another method to reduce crime. Now, what causes crimes? Crimes are caused by environmental factors like we talked about, where there's crime opportunity. Environmental factors such as poverty lines, environmental factors such as household income, household characters, location, environment, schooling, all of these play, especially in the United States, play a role in the cause of crime. Education in a higher funded area of the state, it may not be the same in a area with less funding going towards public school education. This is why we see disparities in standardized test scores. And also, if you look at the demographics and locations of some of the most highly sentenced criminals, you'll see they come from common areas where there's the poverty line is, or the poverty numbers are higher than in other areas. So the economic questions we have raised were, what is the demand for crime? The demand of crime comes from the crime opportunity and risk, and the demand of crime is felt by all of society, as if one person is incarcerated, there is tax from the common citizen going towards that person. Conclusions and suggestions that I have come up with are, there is a system that favors incapacitation, as you can rent out that land and capitalize on it. In fact, incapacitation is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. Rehabilitation and prevention would cost the government more, which is why it's less likely to happen. Prevention would mean having more officers, police officers on duty preventing crime rather than incapacitating criminals who have committed something that could be seen as a crime. Rehabilitation would also cost the government more. Suggestions would be to have anyone involved in a drug crime do therapy in rehab before committing them to an incarcerated institution.